Are there now hostilities in the Russian Federation, the Kursk region? Well, of course, you are not a military expert, but I would like to ask about the reaction of the United States of America. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said that Ukraine did not warn about the actions in Kursk and this does not violate U.S. policy. At the same time, White House spokesman John Kirby confirmed that Kiev did not provide warnings, but promised to provide some data. And now I remember our previous conversations. You have mentioned more than once that I did not quite believe in the lack of coordination, and you said that the armed forces of Ukraine act and make decisions independently, but coordination is still present. I thought that the United States of America was more specifically and in detail aware of the processes in the armed forces of Ukraine. But now we see what you said. It was a surprise for the United States of America, but they say that the armed forces of Ukraine decide for themselves what to do. To what extent do you think the United States of America can disapprove or approve of such movements?
I think that in the current situation in the United States of America, bearing in mind the election campaigns, the Ukrainian military political leadership also takes into account everything that is happening. And what is happening today in the border zone should also be considered from this point of view. And I do not think that the United States of America and the current administration will exert any definite pressure on official Kyiv.
Mr. Yunus, I would also like to ask you, we have not seen each other for 2 weeks, as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast. The exchange that took place is the most significant since World War II and the Cold War. Western countries, including Germany, North America, Poland and others, have returned political prisoners, while Russia has brought back spies and, of course, Krasikov's killer. Why did this happen now? Why did this exchange take place, and can it be linked to the elections in the United States of America?
Again, your voice was a little subtle, but I basically understood. You asked what this exchange meant, why it happened now, and where it came from, to summarize your question. As I said at the beginning of our conversation, this should be viewed exclusively through the prism of the presidential campaign in the United States. Such events occur regularly in America, and every president has tried to use them as part of his PR campaign. This has always happened either when the president was just taking office or during certain elections. And given that the United States of America holds congressional elections every 2 years and elects a president every 4 years, before one campaign is over, another begins. Therefore, the elimination of some terrorist abroad, who is an enemy of the United States, is often used as a PR stunt. Remember the elimination of bin Laden, al-Baghdadi and other terrorist leaders whom Americans consider enemies of the United States. This was done by different administrations, different presidents. And it was always shown as a big, so to speak, PR campaign. Just like the release of US citizens who were held hostage in other countries. But given that lately it has been, well, it was the same back in the days of the Soviet Union, the times of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. And given that today between Russia and the United States, as well as the collective West as a whole, the same, if not more Cold War is taking place, the West is involved on a much larger scale than it was in the days of the USSR and the United States. After all, there is already an institution called the European Union. And therefore we see this confrontation in the informational, ideological, economic and military technical planes, as well as in issues of this kind. In addition to spy scandals, we see that ordinary random people who just happen to be on the territory of Russia are used as a bargaining chip. And it is no coincidence that the U.S. State Department and other official structures warn U.S. citizens and holders of American passports to avoid traveling to certain countries. there is a certain list of countries that have it. That is, any American should be interested in this information before traveling to another country. Yes, of course, the United States of America says that it will fight for every American, but why once again subject itself and its fate to the test? Judging by the composition of people who ended up in Russian prisons, it is clear that these are really random people who have nothing to do with government work, spy scandals and similar issues. Unlike who the Russian side gets. Here is an important point, which perhaps not everyone noticed. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz played an active role. To resolve the issue with Krasikov, his consent was required. And Olaf Scholz had to sell it, somehow present it to German society. It was for this reason that Russia urgently found 5 Germans on its territory, arrested them, and they became a bargaining chip. Many do not even know their surnames. Ask you now, dear Igor, as well as all the others. No one knows about this, because other names are heard. And it was these names that became the argument on the basis of which Russia and the Americans, perhaps, even tacitly agreed. Because everything that happened in this exchange has nothing to do with the Russian-Ukrainian war, the Middle East conflict, or other problems that exist in the world. This is solely the result of the fact that each of the countries involved in the first place, Russia and the United States of America, played its game, agreeing behind the scenes. I explained the interests of each of the parties. First of all, let's start with the United States of America. The presidential campaign is a huge success for the current administration, personally for the Biden and Harris administrations. For example, Harris was also at the airport meeting, which emphasizes the continuity from Biden. It has been actively involved in this process. Look at how this irritates Donald Trump, because, on the one hand, he should be happy about the release of American citizens who are not really spies, but on the other hand, it makes him uncomfortable. If they were spies, the situation would be different. The exchange would have been presented differently, as it was, for example, in the exchange on the bridge, which even served as the basis for the film. When spies are exchanged, it is not done so publicly. And now, you see, this is a PR campaign, which means that someone needs it. And who needs it? First of all, it means that Biden and Harris need it, and they competently sorted it out. Why did Russia do this? I think the Kremlin's euphoria over the fact that Trump is 100% winning, it seems that they have subsided a little. And therefore they understand, and he may not win. No one can say for sure today. Therefore, it is necessary to consider option B. And option B means that we will have to continue to work with this administration, including Kamala Harris. Because all the major players are basically in the Kamala Harris administration, they will stay and continue that policy. And based on this, it means that we need to play along with them in this situation. And in order to play along with them in this situation, it means that we need to make this exchange quite real. And so they decided so that the Russian side would also be satisfied. That is, what did Russia get? It received a continuation of this slogan, "We do not give up our own." This once again emphasizes that tomorrow the same Krasikovs may appear in other cities and carry out the tasks of the Russian special services, depending on the tasks assigned to them. And they will be sure that the Russian state will stand behind them to the end and will do everything possible to get them out of this situation. This is also a plus for the President of Russia personally and also for his entire team. This is also part of a PR campaign and should be viewed through this prism. Do not forget that in Russia, the special services have been in power for 25 years, and they know not only how to take power, but also how to keep it. Therefore, in this situation, this is a curtsy to the Biden administration, and a plus for Russia itself and the current government in the Kremlin. And as a continuation, Shoigu's visit to Iran can also be seen as a curtsy to the Biden administration. This demonstrates that Russia is also not interested in escalation, and hopes that this will be assessed so as not to create additional problems in the Russian-Ukrainian direction. But there is one more human moment that is very important to note. For me, this is of great importance, and I understand that dear Ihor and the Ukrainian audience are primarily interested in this. And how does this relate to Ukraine? What does this have to do with Ukraine? It has nothing to do with Ukraine. Moreover, first of all, those people who are in one way or another responsible for what is happening today on the part of Russia in relation to Ukraine have been released. Because all representatives of the Russian liberal opposition, regardless of their last name, whether it is the late Alexei Navalny or those who are now on everyone's lips, including those who have been released and those who may still be in Russia or abroad, they are all enemies of Ukraine. All of them opposed the territorial integrity of Ukraine, especially in 2014. From 2014 to the present day, let them bring someone who would come out in such a way, and frankly, I mean the leaders of the Russian opposition. Speaking out against war is one thing. Look at the statements made by Ilya Yashin and other representatives of the opposition who have been released. Ukraine is not present there at all. The war must be stopped urgently and everything so that people do not die and so on. Our guys are dying, the third, the fourth, ordinary Russians. Nothing should be done against ordinary Russians. And these ordinary Russians are killing ordinary Ukrainians there today. This is not only done by the authorities. The authorities guide this process. And ordinary Russians go there and do it for money. What interests do they protect there? Russia's interests. Yes, if they defend the Kursk region now, this can be understood. This is actually an internationally recognized territory of Russia. They can say that they are defending the Kursk region or the Rostov region, but when this happens on the territory of Ukraine, what is it called? And what are you calling for? Therefore, this whole Russian liberal position, they are imperialists, they are both enemies of Ukraine, they are enemies of Georgia, regarding Abkhazia, the Skamvali region, they are enemies of my native Azerbaijan. Because we all know how they behaved during Karabakh. And all these representatives of the Russian liberal crowd, whether in the media, such as Echo Moskvy, the same Benedict, here he is sitting in Moscow, and no one touches him. He walks, receives instructions on the old square, and presents them as the Russian liberal opposition, comes to their studio. And this is all allowed. And they have been operating in this paradigm for 20 years, allowed by the Russian authorities. And when did they work? And the dozed TV company, all this Latinina, all this information garbage that they hammered into the heads of their Russians, they worked out this role, they had a specific role. It's just that the rules have changed a little. And now, while they were working out this role, democracy in the face of the West with autocracy in the face of Russia was earning trillions. And now they have quarreled, and the Kremlin, according to the concepts of the West, violated these rules on February 24, 2022, and this war began. And as a result, they did not orient themselves in these rules. And many of them have begun to leave this country right now. And why hasn't there been anything like this against you since 2014? Why didn't you raise your voice in the right way then? And they know very well how you raised it, both in Azerbaijan, and in Georgia, and in Ukraine as well. Therefore, when we understand this and wonder, who did it? This is what the West did. Now look, today, here I am now, do we have a live broadcast? Dear Ihor, as I understand it, literally before the broadcast, I watched The Voice of America. For those who are interested, take a look. Here is the latest issue currently on The Voice of America. When I say on your channels all the time that these channels promote Russian narratives, yes, and that, despite the fact that they say a lot of things, sometimes beautiful words, they have concretely, moreover, this is the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party. The transmission begins. Evening news, top news in prime time. The first 15 minutes show Yashin's speech live. People have gathered, about 30 to 40 people. and this is presented as the main international news. Why do this? Why promote all this? They are also promoting this cook Tikhanovskaya, whom no one in Belarus even perceives at all, if you take it this way. Because she said so many stupid things, it would be better to keep silent. You see, when a person who is far from politics is made into a soap bubble, in the end, who needs it? Because a lot of money is written off for this, large grants are circulating there, but this has no practical significance and will not have any practical significance either on the territory of Belarus or on the territory of Russia. These Russian liberal oppositionists, including Yulia Navalnaya, are also being made into a soap bubble today. And how will this soap bubble be used on the territory of Russia? Yes, it will not be applicable there in any way. This is the same as it was with Soviet dissidents during the confrontation between the Soviet Union and the United States of America. Did any of them come to power later? Who came to power? Gorbachev came during Perestroika, then a representative of the same party nomenclatura, Boris Yeltsin, came. And Boris Yeltsin surrendered all this power to representatives of the special services. And where were all these dissidents? They were nowhere to be found. Therefore, what are they used for? This is exactly what I am leading to, so as not to build illusions and understand that the West has other interests and goals in these conflicts. They need good management and conflicts in order to influence a particular situation through the management of these conflicts. I have been in big politics for many years. Yes, I have seen both the First Karabakh War and the Second Karabakh War. I live in the West and I know the situation quite well from the inside. And I remember 2008, by the way, today 808.08 is just another anniversary of Russia's August aggression against Georgia. And remember how the West behaved in that situation then. And they were already 30 kilometers from Tbilisi, and what did they do? Did they punish Russia for this in any way? No, they, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, announced a reset in 2009, signed a contract for Nord Stream 1 and so on. And then there was the annexation of Crimea in 2014, again under Obama and Biden. That is, these double and triple standards, my native Azerbaijan, Georgia led by Saakashvili, who has done so much for European integration and NATO, fall under the distribution. And what did he get for it? He got the fact that he is sitting in a prison cell today, and no one cares about his fate. And what did you get? You got what you were left with, such a colossus in front of you today, and one step forward to the West, 2 steps back. Now he says, shoot, then, I allow, then, I don't allow, and all this talk. And when you turn on the news, and suddenly, for 15 minutes, the Voice of America in Russian rants about some press conference by Ilya Yashin, which is of no interest to anyone and has no meaning for geopolitics and international politics. I can understand when the day of the exchange is really news, and here is the background of this news, which I deciphered directly: PR in the United States, PR in Moscow and PR in Germany for Olaf Scholz. That is, it was just such a prank. These people were used for this. The topic should be closed. Nobody is interested in it. For 15 minutes, the key channel pushes this news. And all the news remained. The Middle East topic was left aside. The Russian-Ukrainian topic remains. Then, yes, they start it later. Usually, when central news broadcasts start, they start with break news. This should be said about the key ones. About what comes first, comes second. And look what they are talking about. This means that if the stars light up, it means that someone needs it. Does Ukraine need this? I don't think Ukraine needs it. Therefore, do not look for justice here, because there is no justice in big politics. From the point of view of morality, this is, of course, an immoral exchange, because peaceful people are exchanged for a murderer. Did anyone ask the family of a murdered Chechen in Germany? They didn't even know about it. And where is justice? Therefore, there is no justice in big politics, unfortunately. Just keep this in mind, draw conclusions, and remember that the rescue of the drowning is the work of the drowning themselves. Become stronger and do not always rely on donors, because at the right moment you can find yourself under the distribution. Therefore, it is better to know this, understand and gain strength, muscles, as well as set the agenda yourself, the one that you can. Yes, when you understand that, then you can take whatever you need from them, whether it's athletes, wool sheep, or a club. But it's better to play your own game, play according to your agenda, and where they coincide, fine, and where they don't coincide, disagree and do whatever you have to do. I will tell you honestly, I am very glad that my native Azerbaijan has been doing just that in recent years. And such a policy, equal distance from everyone, from the northern neighbor, from the southern, from China, from Europe, from everyone, led to the fact that we have achieved our goals, and today everyone wants to have good, loyal, pragmatic and normal relations with Azerbaijan. And what they think about us in their hearts and how they feel about our victory, we personally do not care. We took what was ours, we will not give it to anyone else.